My name's Ben Halbrook, I'm 34, and I live in Ash Grove, Missouri, population 1,397 if you count the guy who sells boiled peanuts out of a trailer behind the Piggly Wiggly. I work at a tax prep office that smells like burnt coffee and printer toner. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And for most of my life, that's all I ever tried to be, honest. Which is probably why it took me so damn long to realize my wife was lying to me the whole time. I married Rachel 3 years ago after what you might call a small-town fast-track romance. We met at a summer church event, her in a sundress, me in cargo shorts I now deeply regret, and hit it off over potato salad and gospel karaoke. 6 months later, we were engaged. By the next summer, we were married under a rented barn roof with mason jars full of wildflowers and everyone saying, "Y'all are perfect together." Rachel had a certain spark. She could sell salt to a slug. She was ambitious in that vision board, affirmations at 6 a.m., Pinterest mood board kind of way. She said she wanted to open her own boutique fitness studio and empower women through movement. Whatever that meant. I didn't get it, but I supported it. I mean, who doesn't want to see their spouse shine, right? I didn't grow up with much, and I worked hard to get my credit score where it was 784, if you're curious. Paid off my truck, paid off my student loans from community college, kept a rainy day fund even though most days were partly cloudy at best. So when Rachel started talking about applying for an SBA loan to start her dream business, I didn't flinch. She wanted me to co-sign, and I said, let me read the paperwork first. That was our arrangement. She'd dream. I'd double-check the decimals. Now, if you're not familiar with Missouri law or the SBA loan process, co-signing makes you jointly liable for the debt even in the case of divorce. Missouri's an equitable distribution state, so if we split, the judge divides marital assets fairly, not equally. But if you co-sign on a loan, you're still on the hook regardless of the court ruling. That's the legal side. The emotional side? Well, that's where things get murky. Because right around the time Rachel was putting together her launch plan, she told me she was headed to a women's business retreat in Springfield for the weekend. I thought nothing of it. Gave her gas money, kissed her goodbye, and told her to bring me back one of those fancy green juices she pretends to like. The next night, I got a text from my buddy Zach, who works security at a high-end steakhouse up there. It read, "Hey, man. Not trying to start anything, but thought Rachel was out of town with the girls? Saw her at the bar with some dude. Holding hands. Looked familiar." And just like that, the crack in the windshield became a full-blown spiderweb. I didn't freak out. I didn't confront her. I did what any good accountant would do. I started collecting receipts. Because the one thing people like Rachel never seem to understand? I don't start fights. I finish the damn paperwork. You ever have a moment where your body goes cold before your brain catches up? That's how it felt reading Zach's text. Like my blood stepped out for a smoke and left me standing there alone with the truth. I stared at my phone for a solid minute, then reread the message. Holding hands. Familiar guy. Springfield Steakhouse. I knew damn well who it was before I even asked. Colton. She used to say his name like it tasted bad. Colton was a phase, she told me early on. He didn't want real things. He just liked the idea of me. Well, apparently the idea of her was back on the menu along with filet mignon and whatever lies she was serving up over wine. I didn't reply to Zach right away. I just said thanks the next morning, asked if he remembered what kind of car the guy drove. He did, a gray Silverado, dent in the bumper, and if they left together, they had. I smiled politely at Rachel when she came home Sunday night with fake exhaustion in her eyes and a Whole Foods smoothie in her hand, saying, "Ugh, baby, I'm dead." That retreat was intense. I took the smoothie. Said, "Glad you're back." Took a sip. It tasted like regret and blended kale. That night, while she showered, I checked our shared credit card. Hotel charges 2 nights at the Springfield Grand. Room service. Wine. Parking. All things a woman on a budget retreat shouldn't need. Then I checked her Apple Maps timeline. Yes, that's a thing. You can see where someone's been if they don't turn it off. She hadn't. Bless her heart. There it was. Friday night, steakhouse. Saturday, hotel all day, no movement recorded until dinner. Sunday, back on I-44 by 11 a.m. Business retreat, my ass. I wish I could say I threw a chair or punched a wall or at least had a good dramatic breakdown. But I didn't. I just sat on the edge of her bed and stared at my feet for a long while. The same feet that had walked down the aisle for her. The same ones that were about to walk through hell and come out clean on the other side. She came out of the shower in one of my t-shirts like nothing was wrong and curled up next to me. "You okay? You're quiet." "I'm tired," I said. "Long day at the office." She nodded and started scrolling Instagram. I watched her scroll. Then I got up, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I'd do the dishes. She smiled. "You're such a good husband." She had no idea I already knew everything. And I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to build her a future so fragile it would collapse under its own weight. She wanted to play house? I was about to flip the damn blueprint. The funny thing about Betrayal is how boring it can be. You expect fireworks, screaming matches, maybe a dramatic exit, or at least a slammed door. But the truth? Most of it happens in silence. In quiet little moments where someone you love lies straight to your face while handing you your favorite coffee like they didn't just erase a piece of your world. That week, Rachel was radiant. I mean glowing. Talking faster, smiling wider, acting like the world was finally bending in her favor. She'd come home with Pinterest boards and notebooks full of branding ideas. Talked about hardwood floors for the yoga studio, eucalyptus towels for post-class zen, custom window vinyl with the name she'd picked, R3 Wellness. 3RS. Her name, restoration, and ironically renewal. I nodded through it all. Said things like, "That sounds exciting, and let's take a look at the budget." I kept my voice soft, kept my heart locked in a vault. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. She walked in one night, cheeks flushed with enthusiasm, tossed her keys on the counter, and dropped a thick manila envelope in front of me. "SBA paperwork," she said. "Just the last round. I need your signature to co-sign. You're the best." Kissed me like she meant it. "I know you're probably busy, but the bank wants it back by Friday." I told her I'd read through it carefully. "Oh, of course," she said, already halfway to the fridge. "You always do." What she didn't realize is I'd already read the SBA requirements before she ever asked. Small Business Administration loans don't just hand out $78,000 to anyone with a yoga mat and a logo. They require income verification, projected revenue, and this is important, a co-signer's liability in full if the business fails. No prenuptial clause can override a loan default. Meaning, if she bailed? I was screwed. So I pulled out my red pen. Not to correct, not to judge. To learn. I read every page. Every line. She had claimed $52,000 in projected first-year profit based on pre-registrations. I cross-checked her email. There were 3. 2 were from friends. One was from her sister's dog groomer who thought she was just RSVPing to a brunch. Even better? The silent investor she listed was Colton's cousin, Ronnie, a guy I once saw get thrown out of a wedding reception for asking the DJ to play something you can twerk to. Her plan was a fantasy, built on ego and PowerPoint slides. But the numbers, the forged interest, the fake partnerships, they were real enough for a fraud charge. And there she was, in yoga pants and optimism, trusting that I'd just sign without reading. That I'd co-sign away my name, my credit, my peace for a woman who couldn't even fake remorse convincingly. I stayed up until 2 a.m. highlighting, marking, screenshotting. Not angry, just methodical. Like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Rachel thought she was about to be a business owner. She had no idea she'd just handed me every tool I needed to break her future down to dust. I took the next morning off work. Told my boss I had a personal matter, which wasn't a lie unless you count revenge as professional development. I drove to the cafe 2 towns over where no one knew my face and ordered a black coffee and a seat near an outlet. I had my laptop, Rachel's loan documents, a legal pad, and the kind of focus that usually comes with tax season and too much caffeine. But this wasn't about taxes. This was about building a system, a quiet one, airtight and emotionless, that would make sure she didn't just trip over her lies. She'd faceplant in front of the very people she wanted to impress. I started a list. Because that's what you do when your marriage turns into a spreadsheet of deception. Item 1, the bank. I called anonymously first, just to ask questions. Missouri has something called the Consumer Fraud Act. You make false claims on a financial application, especially one with federal backing like an SBA loan, and you're not just in breach. You're looking at fines, maybe worse. Then I prepped a certified letter stating I was withdrawing my co-signature due to suspected misrepresentation. Sent it by overnight mail. Attached a few red flags for good measure, specifically the page where she claimed to have $14,000 in secured sponsorships. which I knew damn well came from me co-signing her last maxed-out credit card. Item 2, screenshots. I backed up everything, her emails, her social posts, even her Google Drive folder titled Vision Dizzy with the little sparkle emoji because of course. Inside, sample contracts she'd edited using my old tax templates. I took copies of everything and dumped them into an encrypted drive. You can't lie your way out when your lies are preserved in .pdf. Item 3, the landlord. She'd been negotiating a lease on a retail space downtown, 500 square feet of exposed brick and optimism. I called the property owner, introduced myself as Rachel's husband and legal co-signer, and asked politely if the lease included liability protection for married partners. He paused, said, "No, should it?" I said, "That's what I was wondering." The next day, the lease was pulled pending documentation. Just like that. Item 4, Colton. Colton. Springfield's favorite son of a bitch. I found his LLC dormant since 2021, listed under a construction consulting firm he started and quietly buried after some unpaid invoices piled up. A little digging and I found a former client who was still trying to track him down for $6,200 in botched work. I sent an anonymous tip. Not out of spite. Just community service. Item 5, backup plan. If Rachel somehow figured all this out and tried to spin it, I needed a shield. So I made a digital file, timestamps, receipts, maps, everything. I named it In Case of Gaslighting and emailed a copy to my best friend and my lawyer cousin in Kansas City. Neither asked questions. They just said, "Got it." By the time I closed my laptop, the sun had gone down and the cafe lights were dimming. I'd spent 8 hours not mourning my marriage, but blueprinting its collapse. Rachel wasn't just losing alone. She was about to lose her narrative. She waited until a Thursday night. I remember because it was laundry night and Jeopardy! Was on in the background. Rachel liked to guess before the contestants even finished reading the question. She was wrong most of the time, but said it was about confidence. That night, she floated into the kitchen with her usual over-the-top energy, the kind she used when she wanted something. She had that manila folder again, all tabbed and highlighted like a middle school science project. "Okay," she said, setting it down next to the peanut butter jar I just opened. "It's go time. Final signatures and we're locked in, baby." She used words like we and locked in the way a cult recruiter might. Everything was always just on the edge of greatness, if only I'd get out of my own way and sign. I looked at the signature lines. Hers was already done, tight, deliberate loops with the kind of flair you see on wedding invitations. Mine was the last blank space on a future I was never going to live in. I picked up the pen. She smiled, leaned against the fridge with that head tilt she did when she was trying to look affectionate but not too eager. "Just think," she said. "This time next year, I'll be running a whole business. You'll finally be married to a boss babe." "You already are," I said, signing with a steady hand. And that was the truth. A boss. And a babe. But not the kind you want in your corner. What she didn't know was that the moment I finished signing, I scanned the page with my phone, timestamped it, then printed out a withdrawal of co-signature letter I'd already prepared and sealed in a stamped envelope. It went out the next morning, certified mail, to the lender, the SBA regional office, and the local branch of the Department of Economic Development. I even hand-delivered a copy to the credit union's fraud officer with a simple cover letter. "I believe this application contains knowingly false financial information and I am removing my name from any liability until further review is completed." The loan application wasn't locked in. It was flagged. She had no clue. That night, she poured 2 glasses of boxed wine and made a toast in our living room. "To us," she said, clinking glasses. "And our future." I nodded, took a sip and said, "To truth." She laughed, probably thinking I was being poetic. But I wasn't toasting her future. I was burying it. The loan officer called me 4 days later. Asked if I was aware that several key numbers on the application didn't match bank records. I said, "Interesting." "No, I wasn't." He paused. "Would you be willing to provide documentation?" I smiled. "You'll have it before lunch." The wheels were turning. Slowly, quietly, but with the force of law and institutional procedure. Not rage. Not violence. Paperwork. And I'll tell you this much: when you betray a man who does taxes for a living, you'd better pray he doesn't have a highlighter. I've lived in Ash Grove long enough to know people talk. Not in the mean way, well, not always, but in the way small towns process things. Gossip here is less about scandal and more about civic duty. If somebody's fence blows over in a storm, 6 people show up with hammers. If somebody cheats on their husband, everyone already knows before the pancakes hit the griddle Sunday morning. Rachel had always been good at the performance of sincerity. Social media full of filtered sunrises, inspirational quotes, and grainy videos of her doing yoga on our back deck like we were auditioning for a Better Homes and Gardens spin-off. Her caption game was elite. You can't grow where you don't bend. Strong women fix each other's crowns, not tear them down. Something big is coming, stay tuned. That last one came the same day the loan was rejected. The email hit her inbox at 8:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know because she screamed. I was in the kitchen buttering toast. She came out of the office like she'd seen a ghost with a knife and bad credit. They said it was denied, she snapped, phone in hand. Some kind of issue with documentation. They flagged the application for potential misrepresentation. What the hell does that mean? I shrugged, very carefully buttering the edges of my toast. Did you double-check everything before sending it in? She stared at me, trying to read something in my face. But all she got was peanut butter and indifference. It doesn't make sense, she muttered, pacing. I know I filled everything out right. Maybe someone at the bank messed up. I should call them. Or maybe, her eyes lit up like a bad idea forming. Maybe I'll go above them. SBA hotline or something. I'm not letting some overpaid desk jockey tank my dream. That night, she posted another story on Instagram. Just a black screen with the words. Sometimes the universe says not yet, but it doesn't mean never. Her friends sent emojis. Fire. Heart. That prayer hands thing people still think is clapping. A few DM'd her, saying, "You've got this, babe." She smiled for them. She pouted for the camera, posted a selfie with a coffee and a quote from some business coach named Skylar Rain. But in our house, her shoulders sagged. Her voice got sharp. Her plans started unraveling like yarn in a cat fight. A week later, she had a meeting with the property owner of the space she wanted to lease. Came home furious. He pulled the offer. Said there's too much uncertainty. Someone must have said something. I raised an eyebrow. Weird. Her eyes narrowed. You sure you didn't say anything? Rachel, I said, looking her dead in the eye. I've barely left the house. Which was true. I hadn't said anything. But the documents I sent? They spoke loud enough for both of us. She still didn't know about the anonymous tip to the SBA's compliance officer. Or the digital package I'd sent with financial inconsistencies, fake pre-registrations, and references that didn't check out. Rachel thought she was starring in a story about a misunderstood dreamer. But every day more people were seeing the truth. And she couldn't post her way out of it. She finally snapped on a Thursday. I'd just gotten home from work, still wearing my khakis and name badge, and there she was, standing in the middle of the kitchen like she was waiting for a duel at high noon. You talked to the bank. No preamble. No, hi honey. Just that flat, trembly voice people get when they know the house of cards is falling and they're still trying to blow on it like it'll stay up. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. Nope. She stepped closer. Don't lie to me, Ben. That got a chuckle out of me. I couldn't help it. It just slipped out like a cough. She flushed red, fists clenched at her sides. This is my life. I have worked for months on this. Everything I've built. You mean everything you fabricated? I said, finally meeting her eyes. You forged numbers, listed fake sponsors, padded class registrations with your sister's friends, and banked on me being too dumb or too in love to notice. She stared at me like she was realizing I'd been fluent in her lies the whole time. I almost felt bad for how long I'd let her believe she was smarter than me. Almost. You think you're so clever, don't you? She spat. Just some small-town tax guy with a vendetta. No, Rachel. I'm a small-town tax guy with a folder. I walked over to the coffee table, lifted the cushion of the couch, and pulled out a thick blue folder I'd been keeping under there for 2 weeks. Dropped it right in front of her. What is this? She asked, refusing to touch it. It's everything, I said. Loan documents. Social posts. Screenshots of you at Colton's hotel, timestamped against your business retreat itinerary. Emails where you list him as a silent partner even though he can't legally own a business because he's still on probation from that contractor fraud thing in Greene County. Her eyes widened just slightly. I saw the flicker the moment she knew I wasn't bluffing. And before you get ideas, I added, this isn't blackmail. I didn't threaten you. I didn't leak anything. I just reported what was accurate. I told the truth. You're the one who filled out those applications. She didn't say anything for a full 30 seconds. Just stood there, jaw flexing. Then, I'll tell people you sabotaged me, she said finally. That you're bitter, controlling, that you're scared of a strong woman. I'm sure you will, I said calmly, sitting down and unlacing my shoes. But here's the problem, Ratch. When someone pulls up your name, they're not going to see a story. They're going to see paperwork. Denied loans. A rejected lease. A flagged SBA report. No whisper campaign can outshout a paper trail. She didn't storm out. That would have taken conviction. Instead, she just walked to the bathroom and slammed the door. I heard the shower run 20 minutes later. Funny thing was, she used to say water helped her think. What she didn't know, I'd already done all the thinking for both of us. And now I was free to start moving on. She, on the other hand, was about to discover how small a town can feel when your mask slips. She stopped tagging me in posts. That was the first real sign. Before the confrontation, she loved pretending we were some golden couple, building our dreams together and all that. Her posts would be filled with shots of our dinners. Her laptop open next to mine. Candles lit like we were crafting destiny over spaghetti and spreadsheets. She even made a reel once with the caption, "My husband is my CFO, 2 hearts." Yeah. Well, the CFO fired her. After our talk, after I showed her the folder and reminded her that fraud isn't just unethical, it's actionable, things got real quiet. She didn't bring up the loan again. Didn't apologize either. Just shifted into some kind of defensive retreat, like maybe if she ignored the wreckage long enough, it would clean itself up. But Ash Grove doesn't work like that. This town doesn't forget. Catalogs. Within a week, she'd lost the lease. The landlord didn't give her a reason. Just said the space was no longer available. I didn't have to do anything. The bank had already flagged her loan. The dots connected themselves. Then came the gym fallout. She had been running fitness classes on the side at a local wellness center. A few boot camp in the park deals, mostly suburban moms looking for a sweat and a stretch. But apparently, a few of them found out she'd used their names on the SBA application as early backers without their permission. Word got around fast. She lost 3 clients in a single afternoon. One of them posted a vague status about being exploited by someone I trusted. The others didn't say anything. They just stopped showing up. Rachel pretended not to notice. She still went to the gym every morning. Came home humming like nothing was wrong. But I knew that smile. It wasn't joy, it was war paint. She wasn't going to fix her mess. She was going to rebrand it. Sure enough, she pivoted online. Started an Instagram page called Rachel Rewrites, where she talked about navigating setbacks with grace and resilience through failure. She posted tearful videos from our kitchen, carefully staged with inspirational music and well-lit close-ups. Said she was stepping away from toxic systems and choosing herself. Never mentioned me. Never mentioned Colton. But the message was clear to anyone watching. She was the victim, and someone had tried to clip her wings. I didn't comment. I didn't respond. I didn't even watch them most of the time. I just got updates from coworkers who'd started hate following her out of morbid curiosity. One guy said, "She's treating fraud like it's a breakup." Another joked, "Guess SBA stands for some bullshit accountability asterisk now." I kept my mouth shut, because the truth was still doing its work. Quietly, relentlessly. Her reputation wasn't just dented. It was oxidizing in the open air. I filed for divorce on a Tuesday. No drama. No theatrics. Just a clean, legal severing of shared resources and name. Missouri's an equitable distribution state. But with her having no job, no loan, and a fraud inquiry floating around, there wasn't much to split. I let her keep the car. She'd need it for her next comeback shoot. Me? I was already planning my next move. And this time, no one would call me CFO. The divorce went through faster than I thought. Guess it's easy to divide the spoils when the only thing left on the table is a used Nissan Altima and 2 yoga mats that smelled like regret. Rachel tried to stall once. Said she needed time to process everything. I told her flatly, "You had 3 years. You processed me out before the paperwork even started." She didn't argue after that. When it was done, I didn't have some big celebratory moment. No whiskey toast. No symbolic burning of wedding photos. I just went home, made a grilled cheese, and slept better than I had in months. But here's the thing about people like Rachel, they can't just fail. They have to recast it as a spiritual awakening. Within a week of the divorce finalizing, she posted a video titled, "Why Losing Everything Was the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me." She was sitting cross-legged on a thrifted armchair holding a mug that said "Girl Boss" with soft lighting and a ukulele track in the background. Her voice was trembling with just enough vulnerability to seem authentic until you realized the tears never actually fell. She talked about betrayal, about the importance of letting go of people who no longer serve your journey. She never said my name, but everyone knew. That's what got me. She scorched the earth with vague language and overfiltered vulnerability, and somehow people still clapped. I guess it's easy to rebuild a personal brand when your followers don't know you once claimed a gym membership and 3 group chats as investors. But in Ash Grove? We remember. I was at the hardware store picking up screws for a new shelving unit when an older woman behind me in line said, "You're Rachel Hallbrook's ex, right?" I turned slowly. "Ben. Just Ben now." She gave me a kind smile. "Good for you." I never bought that enlightenment shtick. Girl couldn't keep track of her own dog, let alone a business. We both laughed. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Later that week, I got a text from Rachel. "Hey. Just wanted to say I know things got messed up. I didn't handle everything right. Hope you're okay." I stared at the screen. Thought about all the lies. The stolen future. The way she smiled while handing me paperwork that would have buried me in debt. Then I deleted the message. No response. No revenge speech. No second act for her to spin into another video about healing through silence. She expected rage. She expected a breakdown. She expected me to burn the house down just so I'd have something to show for the pain. What she didn't expect was for me to walk away from the ashes without needing the fire at all. That's the kind of revenge people don't see coming. It's not explosive. It's not cinematic. It's just freedom. It's been just over a year now. People always say time heals everything. I don't think that's true. Time just gives you room to make peace with the damage. To accept that some things were meant to break, like bones that never set right or marriages that looked better in pictures than in practice. I moved out of the house 6 months after the divorce. Sold it to a nice couple from Kansas City who wanted a fixer-upper with character. That was generous. The place had a cracked foundation and too many ghosts in the paint. I took the proceeds, added it to my savings, and bought a small 2-bedroom fixer outside Stockton Lake. Quiet road. Big trees. No HOA. Just how I like it. I can see the stars out here. That matters more than I thought it would. I started working remotely for a bigger firm. More hours, more clients, but better pay and no small-town politics. Funny thing is, now that I don't have to act like someone's husband, I've got more time to be myself. I've picked up woodworking on weekends. Turns out shaping something useful out of raw material does a lot for a man who's spent years trying to fix things that never wanted to be fixed. Rachel? Last I heard, she moved in with a friend in Colombia and is doing online life coaching. Authentic guidance from lived experience, her site says. I didn't click the link. I don't hate her. Not anymore. Hate takes energy, and I need mine for better things. She made choices. So did I. The difference is I made mine after I told the truth. A few weeks ago, I ran into Zach, the buddy who first texted me from the steakhouse in Springfield the moment all this started. We grabbed lunch, caught up. He asked if I ever regretted not confronting Rachel earlier. I thought about it for a second. No, I said. Because if I had, it would have been about emotion. And she would have twisted it. She was always better at drama than facts. What was it about then? He asked. I finished my coffee, folded my napkin, and said it was about letting her dig the hole, then making sure the whole town saw she was the one holding the shovel. He nodded. Damn. Then we went back to talking about the Chiefs and the upcoming hunting season like normal men with nothing left to settle. And that's how I know I won. Not because I ruined her life. I didn't need to. I just got mine back, every last square inch of it. Clean, honest, and paid in full. The way it should have been from the start.